David had never felt more nervous in his life. The grand hall of the city's most famous hotel was filled with people dressed in their best clothes. The chandeliers shone bright above, and the soft music played in the background. This was the charity gala, the biggest event of the year, and David was invited to speak. It was a big honor, especially because he was the first black CEO to ever be asked to speak at this event. David straightened his tie and took a deep breath. He had worked hard to get here. Years ago, he was just a young man from a small town, dreaming of something bigger. He had faced many challenges and struggles. But now, standing in this room filled with rich and powerful people, he knew he was ready. The gala was full of smiling faces, polite conversations, and expensive glasses of wine. David moved carefully through the crowd. Some people greeted him warmly, others looked at him with surprise. He knew some were not used to seeing someone like him in this place. But David did not let that bother him. He had come too far to be stopped now. As he walked, he noticed Olivia. She was well known in the city. Olivia was a billionaire heiress, the daughter of one of the richest families in the country. She was famous not only for her wealth but also for her sharp words and proud attitude. People often said she was cold and did not like to be challenged. David tried to avoid her, but as luck would have it, they crossed paths near the center of the room. Olivia looked at David with a small smile that did not reach her eyes. She leaned in and said softly, but loud enough for a few people nearby to hear, "You don't belong here." The words shocked David for a moment. They were simple but full of meaning. Olivia was saying he was not welcome in their world, the world of the rich and powerful. The room suddenly seemed colder. David's heart beat faster. He wanted to answer back, to defend himself, but he knew that would only make things worse. Instead, he kept his face calm. He nodded politely and said, "Thank you for your opinion." People nearby whispered to each other. Some looked surprised at Olivia's words. Others looked at David with sympathy. But David didn't let any of it show. He walked away with his head held high, even though inside he felt a mix of anger and sadness. Later, when the time came for his speech, David stood behind the podium. The bright lights made the room seem even larger. He looked out at the audience, some faces familiar, some curious. He took a deep breath and began to speak. He talked about the charity, about helping children who did not have enough food or a safe place to live. But he also spoke about dreams and hard work. He shared a little about his own journey, about the people who believed in him and the moments when he almost gave up. His words were simple but full of meaning. The audience listened quietly. Some people nodded, others wiped away tears. David felt a quiet strength growing inside him. After the speech, many people came to congratulate him. They said they were inspired by his story and proud of what he had done. David smiled and thanked them. But his mind was still on Olivia's words. Back in his hotel room that night, David sat by the window, looking out at the city lights. He thought about the long road ahead. He knew that Olivia's insult was more than just words, it was a reminder of the barriers he still had to break. But David also knew something else. He knew that his success was not about being accepted by the rich and powerful. It was about staying true to himself and helping others along the way. As he closed his eyes, he made a promise to himself. He would work even harder. He would show the world that he belonged not because of money or power, but because of his heart and his courage. And this was just the beginning. The morning after the gala, David woke up early. The city outside his window was already busy with life cars honking, people hurrying, shops opening. But inside David's small apartment, everything felt quiet and calm. He sat by the kitchen table with a cup of coffee in his hand. His mind was filled with thoughts from the night before. Olivia's words still echoed in his head, "You don't belong here." They were like a heavy stone, weighing on him. But David did not let the weight break him. Instead, it made him stronger. He thought about his family, the people who had always believed in him, even when things were hard. His mother, who worked 2 jobs to send him to school. His father, who taught him to never give up. They had shown him that success was not about money, but about heart and hard work. David looked out the window, watching the busy street below. "I belong here," he said quietly to himself. "And I will prove it." He picked up his phone and called his assistant, Maria. Her voice was calm and cheerful on the other end. "Good morning, David. How are you feeling after last night?" David smiled softly. "I'm ready, Maria. I want to start working on the new investment project today. It's important. We have to make sure everything is perfect." Maria paused. "Of course, David. I'll set up the meetings and send you all the details." David hung up and took another sip of his coffee. This was his chance not just to save his company, but to show the world what he was truly capable of. At the office, David entered with a quiet confidence. The building was modern, filled with bright lights and busy employees. He greeted his team, people he trusted and respected. They knew the pressure they were under, but they also believed in David's vision. In the conference room, David laid out his plan. He spoke calmly and clearly, explaining every step. The goal was simple: to grow the company and secure new investments. It would take hard work and careful decisions, but he believed it could be done. His team listened carefully. Some looked worried, others hopeful. But everyone knew one thing: David was not someone who gave up easily. As the meeting ended, Maria brought David some papers. "These are the latest reports on the market," she said. "And the emails from potential investors." David took the papers and studied them. His eyes scanned the numbers and notes. He could see where the risks were, but also where the opportunities lay. This was a game of patience and courage. That evening, David sat alone again, this time in his office. The city lights outside were like stars shining far away. He thought about the gala, about Olivia's insult, and about everything that had led him to this moment. He remembered the faces of the children he wanted to help through the charity. Their hopeful eyes gave him strength. He knew that his work was bigger than himself. David opened his laptop and began to write. He wrote a letter to the investors, explaining his vision and the values that drove him. He did not speak about money or profits only. He spoke about trust, respect, and the power of community. When he finished, he felt a small sense of peace. This letter was more than words, it was a promise. A promise to be honest, to work hard, and to never forget why he started. Days passed quickly. David's schedule was full of meetings, phone calls, and decisions. Every step was important, and every choice carried weight. But through it all, David stayed calm. He listened to advice, learned new things, and kept his eyes on the future. His team noticed the change too. They saw a leader who did not panic but stayed strong. One afternoon, Maria brought news. "David, there's a message from Olivia. She wants to meet." David looked up, surprised. "Olivia? After what happened at the gala?" Maria nodded. "She said it's urgent." David thought for a moment. He knew this meeting could be difficult, but it was also an opportunity. He agreed. The next day, David arrived at a quiet cafe downtown. Olivia was already there, sitting at a small table near the window. She looked different, less proud, more serious. They greeted each other politely. Olivia spoke first. "David, I want to apologize for what I said at the gala. It was wrong, and I was out of line." David was quiet for a moment. He saw honesty in her eyes. "Thank you, Olivia," he said finally. "It means a lot." Olivia continued, "I'm also here because I want to talk about your company." "The $3 billion investment." David nodded slowly. "I know. You took it back." Olivia sighed. "Yes. It was a tough decision. But I want to understand more about your vision. Maybe we can find a way to work together." David looked at her carefully. This was unexpected, but it was a chance to build something new. "I'm open to that," he said. "But trust and respect must come first." Olivia agreed, and they spent the next hour talking not as enemies, but as two people who wanted to find common ground. That night, David walked home with a quiet hope in his heart. The road ahead was still full of challenges, but he was ready. He thought of the promise he made to himself to be strong, to be kind, and to keep moving forward. And for the first time in a long time, he felt that maybe, just maybe, things could change. The news spread quickly. The city's financial world buzzed with whispers and rumors. Olivia, the billionaire heiress, had pulled back a massive investment, $3 billion from one of David's company's biggest projects. The decision sent shockwaves through the market. Some people said it was just a business move. Others believed it was personal. After all, David and Olivia had clashed at the charity gala, and many wondered if her actions were meant to punish him. David sat in his office, watching the stock numbers fall and rise on the screen in front of him. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the computers. His team worked around him, their faces serious but determined. He knew that losing $3 billion overnight was more than just money, it was a message. A test of his leadership and his company's strength. David's fingers tapped lightly on the desk. He thought about the risks, the future of his company, and the people who depended on him, the employees, the investors, and the families who would be helped by their work. His assistant, Maria, entered quietly. "David, there's a meeting scheduled in 15 minutes. The board wants to discuss the situation." David nodded. "Thank you, Maria. Let's prepare." In the boardroom, the atmosphere was tense. Around a large table sat the company's directors, their faces a mix of worry and frustration. Some looked at David with doubt, others with hope. David stood up and began to speak. His voice was steady but firm. "I know Olivia's withdrawal is a big blow. But it does not mean the end. We have faced challenges before, and we have overcome them. This company is built on hard work, trust, and vision, not just money." He paused and looked around the room. "We will need to be smart and careful. We will find new partners, new investors who believe in our mission. We will innovate and create new opportunities. And most importantly, we will stay true to our values." The room was silent for a moment, then one by one, the board members nodded in agreement. A plan began to form. Over the next few days, David worked harder than ever. His phone rang constantly with calls from potential investors and business partners. Some were new faces, people he had not worked with before but who shared his belief in the company's future. He met with bankers, talked to advisors, and even visited smaller investors who usually did not get attention from big companies. David wanted to show that his company was not just about big money, it was about people and purpose. One afternoon, David sat with his team, going over proposals and ideas. Everyone felt the pressure, but also the excitement of a new challenge. Maria handed him a report. "David, this is from a group of investors in another city. They are interested, but they want to meet you." David smiled slightly. "Good. Let's arrange it." Meanwhile, Olivia watched from her office high above the city. She had expected David to struggle, to falter under pressure. But instead, she saw him growing stronger. Her respect for him began to change, even if she did not say it aloud. One evening, Olivia called David's office. Maria answered the phone and passed the message. "Olivia wants to invite you to a meeting. She says it's important." David looked at the phone for a moment. This was unexpected, but he knew that sometimes the strongest leaders find ways to work together, even after conflict. He agreed to meet her. The meeting took place in a quiet conference room at Olivia's company. The walls were decorated with expensive art and bright lights. Olivia sat across from David, her expression serious. "David," she began, "I want to explain why I pulled back the investment." David nodded, listening carefully. Olivia continued, "When we first met, I judged you too quickly. I thought you weren't ready for this world. But I was wrong. You have vision and strength." David felt a small surprise but stayed calm. "I'm glad you see that now," he said. Olivia smiled faintly. "I also want to offer you a chance. I want to invest again on one condition. That we work together openly and honestly." David thought for a moment. This was a big offer, but it came with new challenges. "I am willing," he replied. "But we must build trust, not just money." They shook hands, a symbol of a new beginning. As David left the building, the sun was setting behind the tall buildings. The sky was painted with orange and pink colors, a sign of change. He felt a mix of relief and determination. This was not just a business deal. It was a chance to break barriers, to show that respect and cooperation were possible. Back at his office, David gathered his team and shared the news. Their faces lit up with hope and excitement. "This is our moment," David said. "Let's make it count." That night, David sat by the window again, watching the city lights. The road ahead was still long and full of obstacles, but for the first time, he felt a real chance to succeed. He thought of the people who believed in him and those who still doubted. But most of all, he thought of himself, how far he had come and how much further he could go. With a deep breath, David smiled. This was his time. The days that followed were some of the hardest in David's life. The news of Olivia pulling back the $3 billion investment had created a storm in the business world. Investors were nervous, competitors were watching closely, and the future of David's company seemed uncertain. David felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. Every decision mattered. Every meeting could change the company's fate. His team worked late into the night, their faces tired but focused. At the office, the usual buzz was replaced by a quiet tension. Phones rang non-stop. Emails poured in. Some brought offers of help, but many carried doubt and questions. David sat at his desk, reviewing reports and projections. He knew that this was a critical moment. If they failed, it would not only hurt the company but also the many people who relied on their work, employees, partners, and the communities the company supported. Maria entered with a cup of coffee and sat beside him. "David, you need to rest," she said gently. "You've been working non-stop." David shook his head with a small smile. "There is no time to rest, Maria. We need to stay ahead." She nodded, understanding his determination. Outside the office, the city seemed unaware of the storm brewing inside. People went about their daily lives, unaware of the battles being fought in tall buildings and boardrooms. But David's world was different. He felt as if every step forward was met with resistance. Investors were cautious, and some withdrew their support. The stock prices went up and down like waves in a stormy sea. One morning, David received a call from a longtime investor, Mr. Harris. The voice on the other end was calm but serious. "David, I admire your work, but I'm worried. The market is unstable, and people are scared. You need a strong plan, something that will bring confidence back." David listened carefully. "Thank you, Mr. Harris. I understand. We have a plan, and I will share it with you soon." The call ended, and David knew that words alone would not be enough. He had to act. That day, David called an emergency meeting with his top managers. The room was filled with focused faces. "We cannot wait for others to believe in us," David said firmly. "We must show them. We need to create new projects that prove our strength and our values." He outlined ideas for new community programs, new partnerships, and innovative technology that could change their industry. The team listened, and slowly, hope began to grow. Maria looked at David with admiration. "You inspire us all," she said softly. David smiled but did not let himself relax. The storm was far from over. Meanwhile, Olivia was watching from her glass office high above the city. She had expected David to crumble, but he was standing strong, fighting back with courage and intelligence. She found herself thinking about him often, wondering how a man could face such pressure and still move forward with hope. It was a lesson she had never expected to learn. One afternoon, Olivia decided to send a message to David, not about business, but a simple note. "Your strength is impressive. Keep going." David received the message and felt a strange mix of surprise and respect. The competition between them was still there, but maybe there was room for something more. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the company's fortunes began to change. New investors came forward, attracted by the fresh ideas and strong leadership. David worked tirelessly, balancing long hours with moments to rest and reflect. He reminded himself why he started this journey, not for money or power, but to make a difference. At home, he found comfort in simple things. A phone call with his mother, a quiet walk in the park, a smile from a stranger. These small moments kept his heart steady. One evening, as the sun set and the city lights twinkled, David sat in his office and looked out over the skyline. The storm was still there, but he felt ready to face it. He thought of the words Olivia had said at the gala, the harsh words that once hurt him deeply. Now, they seemed less powerful. David whispered to himself, "I belong here. And I will keep fighting." The storm was not over, but David had found something stronger: hope, courage, and the belief that with hard work and heart, anything was possible. And with that, he prepared for the next chapter of his journey. The city was waking up to a new day, and David felt the same within himself, a quiet but powerful sense of hope. The storm that had threatened to break him was slowly calming, and with each small victory, his confidence grew. David's company was still recovering, but signs of progress were clear. New investors were coming forward, attracted not just by profits but by the vision. David had shared a vision of a company that cared about people, the community, and the future. At the office, the energy was different. Employees smiled more, meetings were full of ideas, and the team worked together like never before. David walked through the halls, greeting everyone with a warm smile. One afternoon, Maria came to David with some news. "David, Olivia wants to meet again. She says she has something important to discuss." David paused. His thoughts went back to the last meeting, the handshake, and the hope that had followed. He agreed to meet her once more. The meeting took place in a quiet garden behind Olivia's office building. The sun was shining softly through the leaves, and the air smelled fresh and clean. Olivia looked different this time, not as proud and sharp, but thoughtful and open. "David," she said, "I want to start over. Not just with business, but with respect. I was wrong to judge you quickly. I see now that you have a strength many don't." David listened carefully, feeling a warmth in his heart. "Thank you, Olivia. It means a lot." She smiled gently. "I want to support your projects. Together, I believe we can do great things." David nodded slowly. "I agree. This is a new beginning." Back at his office, David shared the news with his team. There was excitement and relief. The partnership with Olivia was a chance to rebuild, to grow, and to show the world what was possible when people worked together. The company began to move faster. New projects were launched, focusing on community support, education, and technology. David made sure that every decision was made with care, keeping the company's values at the center. One evening, David received a call from his mother. Her voice was soft but proud. "David, I heard about the new partnership. I am so proud of you." David smiled. "Thank you, Mom. This journey has not been easy, but I am learning every day." His mother's voice grew warm. "You have always been strong, David. Remember, it's not just about business. It's about heart." David felt tears in his eyes. He thanked her and promised to keep going. As weeks passed, David and Olivia worked together closely. They still had differences, but they respected each other's strengths. At a charity event organized by their companies, David looked around the room. Children played happily, families laughed, and the community was alive with hope. David thought about the long road he had traveled from the harsh words at the gala to this moment of joy. He knew the journey was far from over, but he felt ready for whatever came next. Late that night, David sat by his window again, looking out at the city lights. He thought about the future, the challenges, and the dreams he still wanted to chase. With a deep breath, David whispered, "This is just the beginning." And with that, he smiled, ready for the next chapter of his life. The partnership between David and Olivia was growing stronger every day. What had started as a tense meeting was now turning into a powerful alliance. Together, they were beginning to change the way business was done, focusing not just on profits, but on people, respect, and the future. David found himself learning new things from Olivia. She had experience, knowledge, and a sharp mind for business. At the same time, Olivia was surprised by David's kindness, patience, and deep care for his team and community. One morning, David arrived at the office to find a new plan waiting for him. Maria handed it over with a smile. "This is from Olivia," she said. "She wants to launch a new project focused on education for underprivileged children." David read the proposal carefully. It was ambitious and exciting, a chance to build schools, provide scholarships, and create opportunities for children who had little hope before. He looked up, eyes shining with hope. Let's do it. The new project brought the two companies together in a way that was meaningful and real. They held meetings, visited communities, and spoke with families. David saw how important their work was not just for business, but for changing lives. During one visit to a small school, David knelt down and spoke to a group of children. Their eyes were full of curiosity and dreams. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" David asked. A little girl smiled and said, "I want to be a teacher, so I can help others learn." David's heart warmed. He promised himself that he would do everything to help children like her. At the same time, Olivia was working hard behind the scenes. She used her influence to open doors, secure funding, and bring attention to their cause. She was no longer the proud heiress who had insulted David at the gala. She was a partner and friend. One afternoon, Olivia invited David to her office. She handed him a small gift, a simple notebook with a message on the cover: "Build bridges, not walls." David smiled and thanked her. "This is exactly what we are doing." But the road was not without challenges. Some people still doubted the partnership. They whispered that it was only for show, that old rivalries would return. David and Olivia ignored the rumors. They focused on their work, proving day by day that trust could be built even between two very different people. One evening, as they reviewed plans for a new community center, David spoke quietly. "I never imagined this journey would lead here," he said. "From that night at the gala to this moment, it feels like a dream." Olivia nodded. "It's a new beginning for both of us." Outside the office, the city was alive with energy. New buildings were rising, and hope was spreading through neighborhoods that had been forgotten for too long. David felt proud not just of the company, but of the difference they were making. He thought about his family, his team, and the people who believed in him. He also thought about the future, and the many bridges still waiting to be built. One evening, David received a call from Maria. "David, Olivia wants to invite you to a special event tomorrow. It's a celebration of the project's success so far." David smiled. "Thank you, Maria. I'll be there." The next day, at the event, David looked around at the smiling faces. Children played, families shared stories, and the community came together. Olivia stood beside him, her eyes bright with pride. David felt a deep sense of gratitude. This was more than business, it was hope, friendship, and a new way forward. That night, as David lay in bed, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. From the hurtful words at the gala, to the loss of the investment, to this moment of unity and hope. He realized that the greatest success was not in money or power, but in trust and respect. With a peaceful heart, David whispered, "We are stronger together." And with that, he closed his eyes, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. The months that followed were filled with steady progress and quiet victories. David's company was no longer seen as a business that could be shaken by a single decision. Instead, it was becoming a symbol of strength, unity, and hope. David and Olivia's partnership grew deeper. They had faced challenges together, but they also celebrated successes. Their teams worked side by side, not as rivals, but as friends who shared a common goal. One afternoon, David stood in front of a crowd at a new community center they had helped build. The walls were bright with colorful paintings, laughter echoed through the halls, and the air was filled with promise. David looked out at the faces before him: children, parents, teachers, and neighbors. His heart swelled with pride. "This center is not just a building," he said. "It is a place where dreams begin, where hope grows, and where the future is made brighter. The crowd applauded, and David felt the warmth of their belief. After the speech, Olivia joined him on the stage. She smiled and said, "David, when I first met you, I saw only a challenge. Now, I see a leader who has changed more than just a company. You have changed hearts." David looked at Olivia, feeling a deep respect for the woman who had once been his rival. "We did this together," he said. "This is only the start of what we can achieve when we believe in each other." That evening, David returned to his office, tired but happy. He looked out the window at the city lights and thought about the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the night of the charity gala, the insults, the doubt, and the challenge. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Now, he understood that the real battle had never been about money or power. It was about respect, understanding, and the courage to change. David's phone rang. It was his mother. "I saw the news today," she said softly. "I am so proud of you, David. You have shown the world what it means to be a true leader." David smiled, feeling tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Mom. Your faith has been my strength." They talked for a while, sharing memories and dreams for the future. Days later, David and Olivia met one last time in the garden where they had first started to build their trust. The sun was warm, and the breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. Olivia reached out her hand. "Thank you, David, for teaching me about strength and kindness." David took her hand, feeling the weight of their journey. "Thank you, Olivia, for showing me that even the hardest walls can be broken." They smiled, knowing this was not just the end of a story, but the beginning of many more. David left the garden with a heart full of hope. He knew that challenges would come again, but he was ready. Because now, he understood that true power came not from wealth or status, but from respect and trust. At his office, David gathered his team for one final meeting. "We started this journey with a test," he said. "We faced doubts, insults, and setbacks. But together, we built something stronger, something that will last." He looked around the room at the faces of people who had stood by him. "Thank you for believing. Thank you for working hard. This is our triumph." The room filled with applause, and David felt the joy of a dream fulfilled. That night, David sat by his window once more, looking at the stars. He thought about the lessons learned, the power of kindness, the strength of unity, and the importance of believing in each other. With a peaceful smile, David whispered to the night sky, "This is only the beginning." And with that, he closed his eyes, ready for all the wonderful chapters yet to come.